All right. Good afternoon, everyone, once again, and welcome to class. So this is going to be the fifth session of this program. We're actually making a lot of progress, and I believe you've also made a lot of progress yourself on a personal level. Just check yourself now and compare it to when we started. There should definitely be a difference. All right, there should definitely be a difference in the amount of knowledge you've gathered so far and what you've been. So to continue from where we stopped in the last class. But before we go into the class proper, I just want to make mention of some things. So first off, we've seen some of us have seen our grades for week 1. Yeah, so for those that are yet to see their grades, there's actually a reason. And the reason is that although it's not going to be a problem, we're going to definitely work our way around it. But the reason is because you didn't post your link, your assignment link, right? You didn't submit your assignment link basically, so I couldn't access directly your answers right on the Google form. So I just had to grade other persons that submitted their links. So what I'm going to do is that for those that are yet to see their grade, there are 2 reasons. If you didn't submit your assignment, because there's a disparity in the number of persons that answered the Google form and also the number of persons that submitted on the platform. So those that are submitted on the platform are those that I'm going to be focusing on. If you didn't submit on the platform, actually, there is no, we basically don't have any business, right? So unless you submitted on the platform and you didn't see your grade. So those are the people I'm going to be paying attention to. And for those that submitted on the platform, you turned in your assignment, but you didn't post a link. Either you didn't post a link or you didn't post the correct link. What we are going to do is that I'm going to send a link after this class on the group chat. All right, for those that are yet to see their grade. What you just have to do for me is just to write out your name and your email. So your name have to correspond with the name on the platform. Very, very important. All right, it has to correspond with the name on the platform, and your email also has to correspond to the email you used in answering your Google form question or signing in to take the quiz. Right, that is actually very important. I would post these details also after the class, so in case some persons are not here currently. So that's for the assignment. So for the week 2 assignment, you see the grade. Yeah, you have a lot of persons in this course, so it's kind of a hassle grading the whole assignment. So, but definitely you see your grade, and once I'm done with it, the leaderboard will be automatically updated to reflect the recent grades, right? So you can see in real time how well you are performing and how well you can just see the entire thing in one picture, where you are at currently and how well you're performing and all of that. So so that's made available for you. So it wasn't like this in the previous cohort, but thankfully we have it now. So I believe that should also be a source of motivation to put in more effort. All right. So that's it for that. We also have our class rep election going on. So we're supposed to do it earlier this week, but this week has been a lot busy for me. I couldn't make out time early this week to do that. So, but still, we are going to wrap up with it today. So I've given out the details and the necessary info as regards that. I believe everybody has seen it. So if you have not voted, just go onto the announcement group chat, follow the link, and then you should like see the number of persons that were nominated. Then the person that you feel would be the best candidate for the job, just select the person and then submit. So it's as simple as that. And there was something I said um in the announcement group that we're going to. I personally want the assistant and the class rep should to be mixed, both a male and a female, right? So um, if the top candidate, if the top candidate is a male, then we're going to get the next highest candidate for the opposite gender, which is a female, right? So we should have a male as a class rep and a female as assistant, or a female as a class rep, and a male as the assistant. So it's very essential to have that balance, right? Because yeah, it's very, very essential. So by next week we are going to have your class rep working. I will send the names to the CareerEx team so they can give you some privileges on the Telegram group chat. I also drop the responsibilities of the class rep so you know exactly what you're supposed to do. You'll be the one interacting directly with me. And after this election, I'm not going to be listening to, not going to be responding to messages, private messages, because it's overwhelming, honestly. So whatever problem you might have, just direct it to your class rep. And if it's something that might need my attention personally, then you can let me know, and then I'll let him know if you can send me a direct DM. All right. So everything that's going to be happening now is going to be through your class rep and your assistant. So if you're going to be the person that will come out as a class rep, just know that you're going to be doing quite some work. All right. It's a responsibility, and I'm very sure that you already know what's in for you. Right. There's always something like more of an advantage, or should I say an edge, that you will get as a class rep, right? If regardless of the kind of responsibility that you're going to bear, um, I don't have to say all of that, but so more details will be given regarding that after the election is finished or is over. All right. So yeah, I think those are the two things I have to say. For the variety nights, I hope you all attended the variety nights. It happens twice, once in 2 weeks, right? And attendance is usually taken. If you go to your leaderboard, you see that there's a column that's specific for that is dedicated to variety night attendance. So if you didn't attend and take your attendance, you see that you don't have any score on that particular column. All right. But for those that took the attendance, that attended, you see that you have a 6 point mark, which would be added, and then it's going to be integrated to the your total grade or your overall grade. All right. So okay. Someone said connection was really bad during the variety night. Okay, that's taking note of that. The truth is that I personally don't like Zoho, because Zoho can be very network demanding, right? I think that might be the reason why it was like that. Other platforms might not have given the same issue. If it was a general issue, that if the case is that it was a general issue, but if it was just specific issue, then probably you would have to check your if it's from the person speaking, then the person will have to rectify that in case of next time. Although we won't have the same speaker, we'll most likely not have the same speaker speaking twice. So that's it about that. All right. Although there'll be a recording available for the variety night, you can always go through it. So today let's go to our class proper. Okay, everyone had a problem. All right. Patience. Taking note of that. Taking note of that, and I will refer back to the team. Okay. So, today we're going to be looking at um, um, Python programming. So, we'll be wrapping up with Python programming, like the introduction and the concept generally tomorrow. So, starting from next week, we're going to be moving into um, NumPy and other libraries for data science. So this is getting more interesting, right? Like we are marching forward basically. We are like advancing, we are progressing, we are taking steps forward. So if you are not up to date with what we are doing, it's going to be frustrating for you because you'd have to like have an understanding of what we've done previously to catch up with what we are doing. So that's why it's essential for you to attend classes. It's essential for you to do your assignments. It's essential for you to some other things. There's some materials I'll be dropping. That's why I need the class rep. So after this election, I'm going to be I'm seeing a lot of things that I will need the class rep to remind me of, and that so be in constant communication. You'll be referring. You'd have to you'll basically be communicating with me, and you have like a full access. You can don't worry. When we are done, I'm going to give you that. So if you have anything that you might want to know, just tag the class rep. You can chat him up privately and all of that. So, and the assistant as well. So we have a lot of persons in this program, right? So we need some extra hands, right? Okay. So for the last class, let's go straight into what we have for today. So for the last class, we talked on several stuff, and as you can see on the screen, I hope everyone can see my screen first off. Hope everyone can see my screen clearly. All right, great. So for some of you might be asking, why are we starting by 3 p.m. today? And if you've been in our classes, you know that I said that our classes usually officially our classes are from start from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. So I can decide to start from 3 and end by 5. I can decide to start by 4 and end by 6. I can even decide to start by 3 and end by 6, depending on how much we need to like look at on that particular day. All right. So but just have it in your mind that CareerEx Saturday classes are from 3 to 6 p.m. So you should have that time dedicated to it. So starting by 4, fine. You can just come by 3 and let's say be going through what we've done for like an hour or so, and then by 4 the class will start officially. Or you can come by 3, end by 5, and from 5 to 6 you just go through what we've done and all of that. Right. So I think that should be straightforward. So I won't any questions regarding this should be answered. Should you should have your answer already. So that's just it about that the timing of the classes. Without further ado, let's go straight. So we looked at some concepts last class. We looked at string formatting. We looked at types of operations in Python. We looked at I think that was when we stopped. That was where we stopped, right? So today we are going to be looking at conditional statement. We are going to look at loops, and we are also going to look at functions a little bit, right? Because I want to spread the remaining theme concept into today's class and tomorrow's class. So I don't want to pack everything into one class, right? It won't be effective at all. So we're going to look at some concepts, right? We're going to look at conditional statement, and we're going to look at loops. So tomorrow class, we're going to probably look at functions. I'm also going to look at object in Python as well. So after this week, next week, we'll be moving on to a different area of Python. We're going to start looking at libraries. All right. All the things we've been looking at since before today, They are actually core Python concepts. This thing are they are the things that came with Python. When you download Python or install Python in your system, what happens is that the Python functionalities, so you can do all those things without installing any additional stuff, right? That's basically what happens when you download Python. But if you want to like explore other functionality, you want to use Python for other things, it's very necessary for you to like start downloading or exploring different libraries. So you can now start looking at installing libraries like NumPy, right? Installing libraries like Pandas, installing libraries like sklearn, TensorFlow, and all of that, depending on the work you want to do. So those ones, we are going to look at them. And you need to understand these basics. Like that's why I'm taking my time so we get and we have a good grasp of it. You need to understand these basics, the concept, Python generally, before you start working with libraries. Right? So like that's basically just it. And yeah, so let's move on to what we have for the day. So we looked at string formatting. So I'm just going to do a quick memory refresher before we go on to what we have. So I know that we are on the same page. All right. So in the last class, I talked about string formatting. I talked about the 3 kinds of string formatting. Was it the last class we talked about string formatting or 2 classes ago? Can someone just clear the air for us so I know, because okay, last class. All right, that's fine. So we talked about 3 methods of string formatting. So can someone just outline those methods quickly? We talked about some methods for formatting our strings. All right, so yeah, F string was one of them. We have percent formatting. We have okay, you sang patience says F string format method, old style that is percent method. Nigerian Nash format F string percent mass lemon format. All right, so basically we all have a good grasp of what string formatting is. So I feel we are past that now. So if you are told to use any of this method to format your string, it shouldn't be an issue at this point again, right? You should understand the syntax and how to do that. Very simple, very demure, very easy. All right. So now moving on to the next one, we have types of operations in Python. So we looked at some operations in Python, right? In 2 classes ago, we looked at arithmetic operation and we looked at some operators that are used in arithmetic operation. So, but in last class, we looked at other types of operations in Python. So, can someone just list out, like, let's say at least 3 of the operations that we looked at, and let's like just go over that quickly. The reason why I'm doing this is because I want an interaction. I can easily just do the revision myself, but that would defeat the whole point of interacting with you. All right, so I need us to have the interaction, even if the questions are just obvious questions, right? That's not the point of it. The point of it is to have you engage in the class, to have you like think, okay, the tutor is asking a question, like I have to think about what we've done. So typing it out, all these things kind of builds up your brain memory on the particular thing we've done, and it helps you overall in retaining information. All right. So that is part of the strategy we are using here. Okay. So assignment, membership, identity. So I'm seeing someone's giving different symbols. Those are actually operators. Right? Those symbols, like I'm talking about operations, right? We have different operations. We have assignment, we have membership, we have identity, and these types of operations, they have their different operators, like the different operators that are used, right, when using that kind of operations. So yeah, basically, I think we all get have a good grasp of the different operations we have in Python. So arithmetic, comparison, logical, membership, identity, good and fine. All right, so I think that was where we stopped in the last class. So this class, we're just going to try going over quickly what we did and then move on to the next one. All right, so you can see string formatting. We looked at string formatting using the format method. Very straightforward. You should understand the syntax at this point. Okay, so we looked at F string, which is the most used and I think the most popular. All right, and the most efficient as well. We also have the percentage formatting. All right, which is a little bit I think out of the three is the most is the most complex basically, right? So, but at least you have an understanding of it. So now we looked at types of operations in Python. We looked at arithmetic operation. We looked at comparison operation. We looked at logical, assignment, membership, and identity operation. So for each of them, we have the different operations we can perform under that kind of operation. So we have equal to, not equal to, all these things. We looked at them. If you're not in the class and you've not gone over that video, I really don't know what to say, right? But at this point, I feel everyone in class right now should be comfortable at this point with all these things that we are saying. All right, so look at the other ones: logical operations, assignment operations, membership operations, identity operations, and yeah, I think that was where we stopped. I think I took my time to talk about identity operations and comparison operation. Okay, so it was something that we kind of dwelled on in the previous class. So today we're going to move forward. We're going to take a step forward into Python, right? The Python concept. We're going to take a step forward. We're going to look at conditional statements. Conditional statement. You can see that it is written in bold font with in capital letters, right? That's to emphasize the importance of it. Okay. All right. I'm actually just joking. But yeah, conditional statement is actually an important concept in Python. All right. Not necessarily just in Python, it's an important concept generally. If in programming, it's an important concept, all right, regardless of the language you are using. Okay, it's something that you need to know as a programmer. Now coming to Python, we need to boil it down to Python and how to implement conditional statements or how to use conditional statements in Python. So what are conditional statements? I think most of these concepts, they are things that you know already, right? They are general knowledge, and you might have an idea of it, but you might not know how exactly it is applied to programming. So that's what we are trying to do now. Okay, so conditional statement is a normal statement that you can make as a person. Yeah, we use conditional statement a lot, right? We use conditional statement a lot in our day-to-day life. All right. So for instance, if you want to go out or if you want to step out of your house and then rain is falling, because rain is falling, you then decide to carry your umbrella. So carrying your umbrella or taking your umbrella with you is based on a condition. What is the condition? The condition is that rain is falling. So you might not necessarily have these things playing out in this way in your head, but implicitly or subconsciously, this is how your brain works. This is how we work, right? As humans, right? So we work based on conditions. Okay, so the same thing happens now. Like in this live class, you joining this live class is based on a condition, whether you know it or not. So the condition here is that once it is 3 p.m., I'm going to join the live class. So the condition is 3 p.m., the time being 3 p.m. If the time is 2 p.m., there's no need to join. You will not join any class until it gets to that condition. You will now execute an action. So in Python, or generally, an action is most likely always followed by a condition, right? Sorry, a condition is followed by an action. Hope you get what I mean there, right? So before you perform an action, there's always a condition that will require that action to be performed. So I'll give you an example of going out and taking an umbrella. The condition is that rain is falling. If rain is not falling, you will not take your umbrella. But if rain is falling, you most likely take your umbrella with you. So the action there is carrying your umbrella or taking your umbrella with you. And the condition for performing that action is what? Rain falling. Okay? So another instance or another example is crossing the road. So I'm just trying to get relatable examples to drive home the point of conditional statement. We're going to talk about how it is applied or implemented in Python. So for instance, you want to cross a road, like for example, Lagos Road that is always very busy. All right. So whatever road it is that you're crossing. So like, let's say you want to cross a road now. The condition or the action you want to take is what? Crossing the road. But for you to carry that action, there needs to be a condition that has to be in effect. The condition is what? There should be no car in sight, or there should be no vehicle in sight. That is the condition. So once that condition is met, what will follow? The action. The action of what? Crossing the road. So you can now see how this conditional statement is part of our everyday life. Like, you do a lot of things based on certain conditions, whether you know it or not, right? To me, saying this now is trying to just bring it out of you to understand that conditional statement is a general concept, all right? Now we're now bringing it to Python because you need to use conditional statement to control the flow of things when you're programming, okay? So now let's come back to Python. Enough of real life examples. I just wanted to bring you to a point where you understand what it means. So conditional statements in Python are a fundamental part of controlling the flow of execution in a program. So before I move on, are we all following? Are we all following with the class? Can you hear me clearly? Is everything going well? Right. I need feedback from your. All right, great. So now in Python, conditional statements, they are fundamental part of Python, right? They are fundamental part of Python that is used in controlling the flow of execution of a program. Remember I said that for an action to be performed, there needs to be a condition, a given condition. So there's some actions you want to perform. There's some code that you might want to run in Python, but you don't just want it to run like that. Like you want to place a condition on it. Like if this condition is met, then this code should be run. If this condition is met, and what I mean by condition being met in programming is what? If this statement is true. So you can now see how everything is making sense, right? We talked about Boolean value, we talked about conditional operation, comparison operation, and all of that. So true or false is what is going to determine whether a condition is met or not. All right. So if, for instance, if rain is falling, the Boolean value for that would be what? Can someone just quickly tell answer that? If rain is falling, the Boolean value for that would be what? I need us to get involved in the class like as much as possible. Like I can see some persons that are always responding. At this point, I know I can count up to 5 people that I always see their message. We have up to 150 persons on the call right now. All right, so please don't sit in the background and expect only some set of persons to do the interaction for your own good. All right, so yeah, that's basically it. If a rain is falling, right? If you go outside now and you see that rain is falling, the Boolean value is what? True. So that Boolean value means that condition is met or that condition is true. So I need you to just keep all these things in your mind. We are building towards something. All right. So this is what conditional statement is. And they allow the program to execute certain blocks of code based on specific conditions. All right. So it's a way to control the flow of execution in your program. Like no matter the level you get to, as a Python programmer, you would always use conditional statement. It is inevitable. It is inevitable. You need to understand how to use conditional statements. So let's move on. So we have what we call if statement. So for this conditional statement, we have several of them. So first we have if statement. Okay, we have if else statement. We have if elif else statement. All right. So we also have nested conditional statements. We have conditional expressions, which is also called ternary operator. So that is basically it. So let me just go over it. For conditional statement, we have if statement, we have if else statement, we have if elif else statement, we have nested conditional statement. We're really not going to dwell much on this, right? We also have conditional expressions, which are also called ternary operations. So this one is just like a shortcut to do the same thing that we're going to be learning. All right, so let's start with if statements. So I believe those of us that are already into programming would be familiar with this. So it's not peculiar to Python, all right? So it's something that I'm going to create a new notebook. Okay. All right, so let's start with our if statement. So I'm going to be just taking us from okay. This should be all right. Okay, if statements. So in Python, we have what we call if statement. So it's a way to express a condition in Python. So how do we do this? Let me go back to our notes. So for instance, the if statement, or what is if statement? The if statement is the simplest form of a conditional statement. All right, it evaluates a condition, and if the condition is true, the code or the action that precedes or follow. The action that follows it will be executed or would be carried out, right? Basically. So in this case, we have this condition. The condition is we start it by writing if. So if followed by our condition. So this is basically how the skeleton of an if statement. You start by writing if. All right, so we start by writing if. That's a keyword. So anything in Python, we have what we call keywords. So I'm just going to be doing some random explanation. So in Python, we have what we call keywords. Keywords are those combination of letters that Python has registered, right, to a particular action or to a particular that Python has mapped to a particular action. So when you write out those words, Python automatically know that, oh, this person wants to do this particular thing, right? Those are keywords. So you can't just use them randomly. So for instance, if you want to set a variable, you can't use if as a variable name, right? Like it's going to throw you an error. So you have to know Python keywords and know when to use them and how to use them. All right. So let's just move on. So let's quickly write an if statement here. So if followed by a condition. So the next thing that follows is the condition. So you are the one that will determine what the condition is. Then after you've written the condition, it will now be followed by a colon. All right. Once you put a colon, then you now go to the next block. So I remember I told us that an indentation in Python is used to arrange or organize blocks. So once you indent a code, every other code that's under this indentation belongs to this first code. This is still part of this first code, right? So that is what this indentation tries to do. So what is followed after the condition, right? What usually follow is the action that you want to perform. So the code that follows after is the action. So this is just the basic skeleton. This is how simple it is. this basic skeleton of a conditional of an if statement. If keyword followed by condition with your colon, then the next line, an indented line, followed by your action, what you want to perform. So let's just see it in action. Let me change this. What's happening? Oh, 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 oh. Okay. Just give me a minute. My Jupyter notebook server is down. So hope we are still following, and hope everyone can still see my screen clearly. What's happening today? We don't have as many people as we had in the previous class. In the previous class, I usually have about over 200, close to 300 students, but now it's just barely 200, 162 total. Anyways, it's fine. At least those that are really serious about it are being filtered out. All right, so yeah, I think we've fixed that. My Jupyter server was closed. Okay. Okay. Probably, yeah, I think probably they think it's going to be 4 p.m. I think if you are in class and you pay attention, all these things shouldn't elude you. All right. Like I made mention of this, I explained why we made it 4 p.m. and I said that majority of our classes are usually from 3 to 6 p.m. But I can decide to make it 4 p.m. I can decide to make it 3 p.m. And if you check the group, you'll see a countdown, mostly a day before the class. A countdown will be there telling you exactly what time that the class will be starting. So if you actually pay attention to all these things, you shouldn't miss the class. All right, so let's move on. Let's move on. Let's see. All right, so yeah, attendance will be made open as usual, 1 hour after into the class. So just take notes. Okay, so they said if followed by condition, followed by the action. All right, so this is how you write an if statement. So let's just give an example of an if statement. So for instance, now let's say I want to print hello world. All right, I want to print hello world. That's the action I want to perform. But I want a condition to be met before I print the hello world. Let's say I want let's say for instance we have two variables here. We have a equals to 5 and what b equals to or let me just use a very easier one. Let me just say time let's say I want to set a variable is a variable time to morning. All right, so I want to print good morning, but I want that good morning to only be printed when the time is what morning. So for instance, I would have something like this. If time is equal to morning, then print good morning. So you can see that this was executed here. This is my if statement. Let me just write the comment here. Using an if statement. Okay, so let me All right, so using an if statement, you can print good morning, right, if the variable time is equal to morning. So let's say I change this variable equals to evening here. Let me change it to evening. You can see that nothing is printed out here. Why? Because this expression up here have to what? Like, can someone just quickly tell me? It has to be equal to something for this action to be executed. To the right is the action. The action to be performed. All right, so this here is the condition. Exactly. So this, if I come here and I just do the comparison right separately, I'll say time equals to what? Morning. If I run this, it's going to give me false. Do you understand? It's going to give me false because time is what? Equal to evening. It's not equals to morning. But if I come here and I change time equals to evening, you see it will give me true. Like, does this make sense? So, right, anything that is here and is equal to true, it's going to, this next line of code is going to be executed. All right. So let me just give you another example that's going to help you understand it better. So if I come and I say if true, print the condition is true. So what am I going to, like, will this statement here be executed or not? So this is a very straightforward answer. Will this statement here be executed or not? Yes, it will be executed simply because this condition here is true. So any condition that we have here is going to be evaluated and we're going to get a value. So that value can be either what? True or false. So if the value is true, then the following line of code or the block of code will be executed. But if it is false, it will not be executed. So in this case, this is my conditional statement. So no matter what I put here, like after this conditional statement, if I come here and I say do this, like I do as many actions as possible, it's always going to be performing or executing that code because the condition is true. All right, so if I change it to false, nothing is going to happen because the condition is false. So this is the same thing that happens when you actually write an actual conditional statement here. Python will evaluate this condition here and then equate it, and when you evaluate it, you get either true or false. That is basically just it. So it is not going to replace this entire thing with either true or false. So if it is true, it will execute. If it is not true, it will not execute. As simple as that. That is how you use if statements in Python. All right. So let's move on to the next one. I feel that is actually we've done justice to that. So we're going to look at if-else statement. So we looked at if statement. I think we have several conditional statements. We have if statement, which is the simplest one. We have if-else statement. We have if-elif else statement. All right. So these are the three major statements that we have and we'll be using in Python. So let's look at if-else statements. So we looked at if statements. Now let's look at if-else statements. If statement. All right. So for if-else statement, we are kind of extending the if statement a little bit. So we are going beyond what we already know from if statement and extending it. So the structure of an if-else statement is the same thing as an if statement, just it has an additional statement called else statement. So if I come and I say if condition, then action. All right, let me just say action 1. So this is the if statement. To include an else statement, we now have to like write else. We'll start from the beginning of the line, all right, after the first block of code, right? Because this is a different execution entirely, right? So once you write else, you don't write anything in front of it. You follow it by a colon, and then what follows it is action 2. So what this means, right, is that if this condition here is true, this action will be executed. But if its execution is what? False, it will now jump to this else statement and execute this other action. I hope that's very clear. Like you can see how easy programming is. This is programming is just basically logic. So you need to know how to translate that logic into code. That's what we are teaching you, right? If you understand basic logic and you know how to like do 2 + 2, 1 and 1, this is equal to this, square peg equals to square hole, and all of that, you would excel in programming. The only difficult thing mostly is the syntax. Although I'm not trying to just downplay how complex it can be sometimes. There are some levels that the logic can become very complex and all of that. But if you build from the foundation up, you're going to like just breeze through it. Trust me. Though I'm not saying it's going to be 100% easy, right? But this is basically what you should expect. All right, so let's give an example. Let's use the former example that we had. So we have time equals to morning. So I wanted to like greet a person. If it is morning, I will say good morning. If it is not morning, then I'm going to say let's say good afternoon. Let's just use that, right? Because it can be evening as well, but let's just use morning and afternoon in this case. So I'll come and say if time equals to what? Morning, right? Morning, not morning. Okay. If time equals to morning, then print what? Good morning. Else. This else basically means if time is not equal to morning, that is what else means. Then print good afternoon. All right. So in this case now, like looking at it, you know automatically that the first statement will not be executed. Why? Because it is false. So in if else statement, once the first condition is false, the else statement will always be executed. Do you understand? So that is where else come in. If the if statement is false, Python will jump to the else statement and execute it. But if the if statement is true, Python will not execute the else statement. That's the relationship between if and else statement. So if I run this now, I'm going to get an error because I didn't close my bracket. So let me close my bracket here and then run again. So you can see that I'm getting what? Good morning. Why? Because the first statement is true, right? Because time is what equal to morning. So let me just come here and change it to, let's say, something else. Let me just change it to not morning. So you see I'm getting what? A different output, good afternoon, because else if statement is what? False now. So Python will now jump it and then execute the else statement. This is so simple that, like, I don't know, this is actually very straightforward. So just give me a minute. So this is actually very straightforward. I believe you shouldn't have any issue with this explanation. But anyways, if you have questions, you can always ask after the class. So let's just move on to the next one. See, I am looking at giving other examples, but yeah, but because of time, I think this would suffice. So let's just move on to the next statement. So we will look at the next statement. We have another conditional statement called if elif else statement. Okay. So this is the last statement that we would be looking at in conditional statement. We have if statement, we have if else statement. Now we have if else statement. So what does this mean? All right. So this basically introduces a new statement called if statement. So what this if statement mean is like you want to put multiple conditions at this point. You don't just want to use one condition. So I can the structure as I've done for the other one follows this particular pattern. So condition one, action one. Then you write if, then condition two, followed by what? Action two. Then you can have the good thing about this elif is that you can have as many elif statements as you want. I can come on and say elif again, condition three, action three. Let's see, put another elif. You can have another elif, condition four, and we have action four. Then we can now have our else statement. So the else statement is always the last statement, all right? After everything, you have your else statement. So the else statement in this kind of if else statement happens only when neither of among all these conditions that we have from condition one to condition four, if all of them amount to false, that is only when this else statement will be executed. But if one of them is true, at least one of them is true, else statement will not be executed. So for instance, if this first condition is true, it will stop execution here and print it out and do the particular action. If condition one is false, it would jump to condition one and come to condition two. If condition two is false, it will jump condition two and come to condition three. If condition three is false, it will come to condition three, jump condition three and come to condition four. If condition four is true, it will now execute condition four action and then stop there. All right, so that is a flow, or that is a pattern in if else statement. So let's give an example. So for instance, let me still use the same example as we used before. Time equals to what? Let's say our time is morning. Let me just introduce something to us here. So we have a function called impute. So impute is let me check something. Okay. So this is just additional stuff. Let me say time equals to impute. Okay. So I'll come and say if time equal to morning, make everything smaller there. If time equals to morning, okay, I think I can see some persons joining now. I felt they thought it was going to be 4 p.m. Okay. All right. So I think that needs to be made clear. Right, everybody just join first. All right. So the attendance is up now. You can actually go and take your attendance. In 30 minutes time, we're going to be blocking the attendance. So. Okay, so you can start taking your attendance now. So yeah, we have these statements here, and we're going to be looking at how to use them. So if time is morning, right, we're going to print good morning. If time is equal to afternoon, then you print print good afternoon. Elif time equals to evening. Then you print good evening. Else print no greeting. So before I execute this, I just want to check the group chat. I think I can see some messages on the group chat about some persons just joining. So someone just said that the time for class should be communicated. I think one thing that one issue generally is that we don't read the fine print, like like details of information, right? Because I think I mentioned this in the class notice I posted earlier today, that see you in class by 3 p.m. Aside that, the countdown for the class was also for 3 p.m. So if you were conversant enough with what was happening, you would know that the class for today is 3 p.m. Aside that, in the previous classes, I've said severally that the class officially is from 3 to 6, but we would be flexible with our time. So sometimes it might be 4, sometimes it might be 3 p.m. depending. So I don't think at this point you should be having issues about the class time and all of that. So please let's adjust from now, right? So we don't miss the class and we don't have this kind of issues. All right. So okay, let's move on. But we've started our class and attendance has started already. For those just joining, you can just take your attendance and continue with the class. Don't worry, the class recording will be made available, so you can always catch up with what you've missed. So now we have this if else elif statement. So in this case, we're going to be working with this. So I just introduced a function which is called input function. So this input function is a function that kind of receives input from a user, right? So it's just to kind of create this dynamic input so they can change variable and all of that based on depending on how when you execute your code, right? So in this case, I want to say afternoon. Time is what? Let's say afternoon. So you can see that it will now take in the input I passed in and then assign it to time, and then now it will now go through all the conditional statement. To go through the first conditional statement, the first one is morning. So I passed afternoon, right? Not morning. So this is false. So it will jump this first statement and go to the next one, and then check the second statement. This second statement is true because the time is what equals to afternoon. So it is now going to execute this particular statement and then end the entire execution, right? Once it meets a true statement, it's going to execute that statement and end it there. All right. So let's try it again. So I'm going to execute this, and I'm going to say morning. Right, you can see now it's executed the first conditional statement, which prints good morning. So I feel this should give you a feel of what conditional statements are. So you can actually play around with it. All right, so if I come here and I say evening, good evening. All right, if I come here and I say just type rubbish, let's just say Friday, what am I going to get? Like I just want to get a response from the class. What am I going to get if I do this? Exactly. I'm going to actually get the else statement to be executed simply because every other conditional statement were false. None of them was a true statement, all right? So everything was false, and then the else statement is the remaining one. So whenever everything is false, the else statement will always be executed, all right? So if I run this, I'm going to get no greeting. Please, I can just come here and say, please um re-enter a valid time of the day. You see, I'll come here and I'll just say Friday. You can see no greeting. Please re-enter a valid time of the day. I'll just remove everything and just put please say night. Please re-enter a valid time of the day. I'll run it again and I'll now enter a valid time. Let's say afternoon. You can see good afternoon. So this is a flow statement in Python, right? This is an example of a flow statement. So here we use conditional statement in Python. Very simple, very straightforward. So now we've looked at conditional statements, we've looked at if statements, we've looked at let me go back, we've looked at if statement, we've looked at if else statement, we've looked at if else statement, right? So you can see based on what we did here. So your condition can be anything basically. It can be you trying to compare two numbers. Can you see in this case we have x, we are trying to compare x with a number. I are doing the comparison operation here. So we assign x 10 to x variable, and then we come to check if x is greater than 15, print x is greater than 15. If x is greater than 10, print x is greater than 10, but less than or equal to 15. Else print s is less. So there, depending on your use case or depending on what you want to achieve, you would have to craft your conditional statement to suit your problem or suit what you want to do. So I can't actually exhaust the entire examples to explain how to use this statement. So you just have to, it just comes back to you to use your knowledge of what we have already done in Python and apply it to this conditional statement. All right. So I hope that is very straightforward. You can even use logical operations to combine two conditional statements. So if you use and, then two of those statements have to be true for the entire statement to be conditioned to be true and to be executed. So you can build up a complexity that way. But once you understand the basics, once you understand the core idea in conditional statements and how to use it, trust me, building up and scaling will not be an issue at all. It's not be an issue. So I really advise you to practice a lot on your own because you would learn how to apply this in different settings. All right, so we have what we call nested conditional statements. Nested. So nested usually mean when something is inside another thing. That's what nested mean. So in Python, we're going to be in a lot of stuff like nested for loop, nested conditional statement. You can even have nested functions, all right? So depending on what you want to do, you might need to have a nested conditional statement. So in this case, you can see that we have two variables here. We have x and y. So we have the first conditional statement. If x is greater than 5, that's the first one. If this is true, then it will now check this. If y is greater than 15, then print x is greater than 5 and y is greater than 15. Else print s is greater than 5 but y is greater than 15, right? Else, if this is not true, then you come here and execute it. Let me just give us an example to drive home that the point and to help you understand it better. So let's look at nested conditional statements. Conditional statements. Okay. So in nested conditional statement, this is the structure it follows. So if condition, I can say outer condition, all right, then you come inside that condition and write another conditional statement. If inner condition, then you can now say action. And then for this inner condition, if it is not met, you can come and just put else statement and say inner action, and then come out to your outer conditional statement and just write your else statement and then outer action. This might be looking complex and all of that, but if you understand what we discussed earlier, just take your time to break it down, you understand it better. So how this thing works is that this first statement here, if it equates to true, then this inner condition will be executed. Everything here will be executed. Do you understand? But if it's not true, then it will just jump straight to this else and execute this else statement. So let's give an example to demonstrate it. So let's say we have X, or let's say we have A, and let me see if I can bring up a very interesting example. Okay, let's say first name is Emmanuel, and let's say last name is Annie. All right. So now I want to use this to create a nested conditional statement. So I'll come up and say if first name okay, let me make it dynamic, let me make it interesting. Let me use impute here. Impute. So this impute is just for fun, basically. You might not even use it like that in like your practice and other stuff you'll be doing in data science, but just for fun, just to create a dynamic variable that changes every time. So now let's say I'll come and say enter. You can actually give it put a text there so it will direct the person on what is expected. Enter your first name. Come here and say enter your last name. Okay, so I'll come and say if first name is equal to let's say okay, let's just use my name. Let's say Emmanuel. I'll come and say if last name is equal to Annie. You come and say print your name is first name and name is Emmanuel. And then so for this inner statement, I can now say else. I will now come and say I said print you are not Emmanuel Annie. All right. So that is for the inside statement. So for the outer statement, you can come and just say okay. Yeah, close the brackets here. All right, just print identification field. So this is a simple logic, like to kind of identify somebody. So if I just run this, first name, let me hope it works, Emmanuel, last name, Anu. So you can see that it worked, right? The inner statement worked. Your name is Emmanuel Annie, all right? So if I come and I put Emmanuel and I not put the correct one, let me just say I put, let's say Annie with a H, all right? You can see it said you are not Emmanuel Annie. The person is Emmanuel, but it's not Emmanuel Annie. But if I come and I miss both the name and all of that, if I put this, let me see, John Doe, John as the first name and Doe as the second name, you can see identification field. So this is just a very simple means of identifying somebody. So I'm just showing you this so you know how if statement can be used and how it can actually get sophisticated. All right. So this is an example of using if statement but nested if statement. I hope we are still following up to this point. Because I need feedback from you all. I hope we are all still following. All right. So, if you followed through from the beginning where we talked about if statements, you can see how we built from bottom to top now. We talked about if statements, how the structure of an if statement is. If is the keyword followed by a condition, then you have your colon and then followed by an action. All right. So that's how we structure our if statement. I gave us an example here, right? And I showed us how it works under the hood and how the comparison is being done, that the condition has to equate to true before the action is executed. All right. So we now moved on to if else statement. So we looked at introducing another statement called else statement. So the else statement executes only when what happens. I need us to complete that. The else statement is executed only when what happens. Exactly. So when a condition is false, the else statement is going to be executed. But when a condition is true, the else statement will not be executed. So that's the logic behind that. So we now even move further to if, elif, else statement. So for this, we are introducing what we call elif. Elif is another keyword. So now we've introduced three keywords: if keyword, elif keyword, and else keyword. So the elif keyword is basically a contraction of else and if. All right. So it's a contraction of else and if. So we now have elif. So it's like adding an additional if statement, right? So that is what the elif statement here means. So you can add as many elif statements as you want, depending on how much condition you want to check. All right. So that's it for if, elif, else statement. Now we moved on to look at nested conditional statement, and I showed you the structure. You have an outer condition which has to be true before the inner if statement will be executed. If the outer condition is false, it will not execute the inner condition, and then it will just go straight to the else statement and execute it. If the outer condition is true, it will go on to execute the inner condition, and then if the inner condition is true, it will not execute the else, it will just execute the action. But if it is false, it will execute this else statement. The thing about this nested condition is that you can actually have more nested conditions. So I can come here and actually have another nested statement inside this inner condition. I can say inner condition. Okay, and then I'll say inner action, and then I'll come and say else, and say inner else. So it's looking a lot more complicated now. But what we're having here, we're having two steps of nested conditional statement. So your logic might require you to have nested conditions. So this is where you bring this in. So your knowledge of if statement is going to help you a lot in situations like this. All right. So that is going to be it for conditional statement. I think we have one more thing to look at. Okay. All right. So we have one more something else to look at before we move on to the next thing we have for today. And that's going to be conditional expressions. All right, conditional expressions of ternary operator. So ternary operator, they are actually a contraction or a short way of writing an if statement. So according to what we have here, Python also supports a shorthand way of writing conditional statements, which is known as ternary operator or conditional expressions. So I think we're going to look at this also later on as we move. There are different things we can do in Python. We can do the same thing in different ways in Python, right? We can actually write a function normally as a function, which we're going to look at tomorrow. We can also write a function in a contracted way as a shorthand, right? We can write a list, a for loop and a list using the normal for loop, which we're going to look at. We can also write a loop and a for loop using a list comprehension, right? So Python gives you different options to do the same thing. So this one is one of those things. It gives you an option to write an if statement, but in a shorter and more contracted form. So what does this mean? So let's look at the example here. So for instance, we have this particular variable. I want to check if x is greater than 2, if this variable is greater than 2. So instead of writing it in the normal way we write it, we can write it in this form and it will give you the answer. So let me come here. Ternary operator. So let me just give you the structure of a ternary operator quickly. So how we are writing ternary operator is like we write the action if true first, followed by if and then the condition, followed by the action if false. So how do we do this? So let's just follow this. So let's say we have a variable called let's choose x equals to 4. I want to use ternary operator using ternary operator. So normally if we want to do the same thing, okay, let's quickly do it before we check how we do it normally. So action if true, let's say we want to say x is greater than 3. That's the action if true. Then the statement if x is greater than 3, then this is what you're going to get. Then the second part of it is going to be the action if false. All right. So the action will be x is not greater than 3. All right. So if you run this, where is it coming from? Okay, you're supposed to have else here. Else. So if you run this, you're going to get this x is greater than 3. Right. So the same way we write it, let me just show you how we write it normally. If x is greater than 3, then write x print x is greater than 3, then else print s is not greater than 3. So these two are the same thing, using the regular if statement. Okay, so these are two ways of doing the same. You can see this one is more extended, while this one is just a single line, but they are doing the same thing. So if you want to write a very simple if statement, you can just use your ternary operator. All right. If I pass this to a variable, I can pass it to a variable. I can say results. And if I come here and I print the result, you can see it's giving me what x is greater than 3. So depending on your need and your use case, you might require either of them. You might require ternary, you might require regular if statement. All right. So that's it for if statements. I believe we've gotten a hang of it. For those that might not have been following up to now, please, you might need to rewatch the video, or you can ask a question later on, and also do your assignment, go through this material, and just do a lot of practice, basically. Right? So that's going to be it for that if statement. So let's go to the next one we have for today, which is loops and iteration. We're going to look at loops and iteration. Now, this is another core concept in Python. You can see that it's written in bold and capital letter, as I said before. Yeah, so that's just by the way. So loops and iteration, they are another concept generally, but then we can apply them in programming. So the same way I explained what conditional statements are, I gave you real life examples, relatable examples, and all of that. So the same thing now can happen in loops. The same thing applies in loops and iteration. So loop is just what we know. When something is being repeated over a number of times, that is what loop mean, right? Loop, when something is repeated over a number of times, that is what loop basically mean. It's like doing the same thing over and over again. You are looping, you're going in circles, doing the same thing. That's the core idea of loop. So now let's bring it down to Python. So loop and iteration, they're almost the same thing, like just the same way of different ways of saying the same thing. So loops in Python are a fundamental construct that allows for the execution of a block of code repeatedly. So as you can see, this repeatedly is very key. Repeatedly, right? So when you want to do something repeatedly in Python, your go-to concept is what loops and iteration, or your go-to tool, or let's just use tool, is loops and iteration. When you want to execute a code based on a condition, your go-to tool is what if conditional statement. But when you want to execute something repeatedly, your go-to tool is loops and iteration. All right. So you can actually do it for a fixed number of times or until a certain condition is met. So now you can see how we are building on top of the things we've done. You can actually use conditional statement and loops at the same time. And I'm going to show us that. Hopefully, we're going to have enough time for it. We have about 30 minutes left. So we're going to we can have the loop happen for a fixed number of times or until a certain condition is met. All right. So we'll demonstrate that moving forward. In Python, we have two different kinds of loops. The same way we have different kinds of conditional statement. We have if else, if else, and all of that. So we have two different kinds of loops in Python. We have for loops and we have while loops. Let me come again. We have for loops and we have while loops. So this is what we mean, for loops, or we have while loops. So you need to start getting comfortable with programming terminologies. I show these are the things that transverse programming language is not just peculiar to Python. So any programming language you go to, you would hear these things, right? They're very universal. They're a universal concept, right? So let's just start with for loop. So what exactly is for loop? So let me click on this and just show us. So we're going to be looking at For loops. All right. So we have for loops, remember, and we have while loops. So for loop in Python is used to iterate over a sequence. That's what for loop is. Now, for while loop is used to execute a block of code as long as the specific condition is true. Now, you might be wondering, like, what's the difference between while loop and if conditional statement? We're going to dissect that and explain it. But while loop is used to repeatedly execute a code. Like, you will continue executing that code until the condition becomes false. But as long as the condition is true, you will keep doing that thing. So there's what we call infinite loop in Python. Infinite loop. When you use while true and then put your code, the code you want to execute, that code will continue executing until your computer runs out of memory. All right. So it's called an infinite loop. So you have to be careful on how you use your while loop. So I'm going to see if I will try the while loop here. But basically, it executes your code until the condition is false. So that's for while loop. But let's look at for loop first. So for loop is used to iterate over a sequence, all right, such as list, tuple, dictionary, set, or string. Remember, I told us what a sequence is. All right. I told us that we have sequences in Python. We have list, is a sequence. We have tuple, it's a sequence. We have dictionary, it's a sequence. We have set, is a sequence. We have string, it's a sequence. There's some questions that some of us asked during the week, which were very intelligent questions. It shows that we are actually doing our own practice and research and all of that. So, like at this point, I feel we should be able to explain what a sequence is. And we know that some sequences are mutable, some sequences are what? Immutable, right? So that one we've discussed that already, right? But for today, we're going to be looking at how we can loop over these sequences. So one of the characteristics of sequences is that we can loop over them. So looping over them is being done using for loop. So remember I told you that there are two kinds of loops. We have for loop and we have while loop, all right? And there are two ways we can execute our loops, either for a fixed number of times or until a certain condition is met. For a fixed number of times, it's using for loop. Until a certain condition is met, it's using what? While loops. I just want to explain that so we are up to speed, right? So once I start demonstrating, we don't get confused. So let's look at for loop now, right? So the way a for loop, I'll start with the structure the same way I've been doing for conditional statements. So a for loop is written this way: for here is what do I call for? What do we call for in this case? The same thing I called if. What do we call for? I need responses, please. Exactly. So for is a keyword in Python. So once you type for in Python, Python automatically knows that, oh, it triggers something in Python that this person wants to start a for loop. If you type if, Python will be triggered, something will be triggered in Python to know that this person wants to execute an if statement. All right. So for instance, now we're going to write for followed by variable followed by in and then followed by the sequence. So this is the structure, all right, of for loop. And then the code block or the following block of code can be anything you want to do, right? You can just define whatever the action is going to be, right? So let's say I just want to print each of the variable in that sequence. I'll just say print variable. So this is how we use for loops in Python. So let us use an example. Let us create a sequence. So let's create a sequence list. Let me say names. I'm just pick random names from the group. Now we have patients. We have glory. We have look. All right, so let me just stop here. Okay, so we have this sequence, this list. This is a list, right? By the square brackets at the opening and the closing, right? So this is a list, and we want to loop over that list. And looping over that list, we want to do something. We want to perform a particular action for each iteration. So now, how do we do this? Remember, I've given you the structure here: for variable in sequence. So once I come here and say for, now the variable can be anything you want to name it. Like, you can name it anything. So I will tell you exactly what happens when you do this for loop. So I can come and say for name in names. So once you write out this code, what happens in Python is that, let me just create a new code. What happens is that for each iteration, remember we have this first one here, this second one, this third one, this fourth one. So for each iteration, Python will assign each of the elements to this variable name. So for the first iteration, Python will assign patients to this variable name. After that first iteration is done, or that first loop has completed, it will now move on to the second item and assign this glory to this name. So it is going to be something like this. For first iteration, first iteration or loop, anything you want to call it, or loop, what will happen is that for that sequence, Python will assign name will be equal to names 0. That is the first element, right? The second iteration, Python will assign name to names 1. So you can see that this variable name here will be changing based on the iteration, or the number, or where it is at the in the iteration or in the loop, basically. So it changes. It does not retain just one variable. It changes based on the elements in which the loop is at currently. So it is going to continue this assignment, this variable element assignment, till it gets to the last element or item in the list. All right. So if I come here, let me just say, I come here and say last iteration is going to be name equals to names minus 1. So this is what happens during a loop, like during a for loop, basically. So let me just show you what happened by executing this code. So I'll come here and say print. What I want to do, like the action I want to perform, is to print name. All right. So what will happen here is that each of these names, or the elements in that sequence, will be printed out. So if I run this, you can see that it printed patients first and came here, printed glory, printed Nigeria, printed Azam, printed Luke. All right. So it went through each of the elements in that sequence and printed each of them, because that is what I wanted it to do here, right? So I can do anything I want to do. I can come and say, let's say, let me use f string. This is the name in the list, not in the list. All right. So I can do this. Okay. Put my string here. So I can do this, and you see that depending on what I indicate here under this for loop, I'm going to be having the output, right? So in this case, I want each of the iteration to print out this thing. But as it is printing it out, it should attach the name for each loop. So each loop is always corresponding to a value in that sequence. That's very important to know. Each loop is corresponding to a value in that sequence. So once this first loop is done, it will start again. Second loop, it will start again. Third loop, until the last element, until the element has been exhausted in that particular sequence, and then it will stop. So once you want, when you want to do something repeatedly over a long list, you want to do the same thing over a long list, for loop is your best option. All right, for loop is actually the best option. Okay, so this is just for loop. Basically, we're going to build on it. We're going to look at how we can perform other things, but I hope you understand exactly how we can use for loops. We use for loops on sequences. That one is very important to know, that we use for loop on sequences. And then there is what follows it is like an action. The same way we have an action for a conditional statement, we can have an action performed for each of the loop or for each element in that particular loop. All right. So there's something that you also need to know as regarding for loop. It is called range, the range function. So the range function is a function in Python that creates a sequence of numbers. So if I want to create a sequence, let's create a sequence from 1 to 10. All right. So I can use range instead of just typing it at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So there are a lot of things you want to do, right? But you don't want to start listing the number of times you want to. You can just use range. So let's say I want to print hello world 10 times, right? I can use range and do that and achieve that. So let me just show you what range is. If I come and say range 10, what it's going to do is that it's going to return a range object between 0 and 10. So it's not giving me the list. To get that list, I'll just have to convert that range object to a list and just write list at the back, right? And it's going to convert it to a list. So if I run this, I'm going to get this. I'm going to get from 0 to 9. So there's something you need to know about range. Range usually starts from 0 and ends at a number before the number that you indicated here, right? So if you put just one argument or put one value in this function, it is going to start from 0, right? But if you put two numbers, and let's say you put 1, 10, so what this means is that you want it to start from 1 and not 0, then to start from 1 and stop at 9. So if I run this, you see that it starts from 1 and stop at 9. If I put 2 here, it will start from 2. If I put 5, it will start from 5. So this one range here is the starting point. This is the ending point, but it doesn't end in that particular value. It ends in a value before that value. So this is the format for range. Range, start, end. There's another argument that is called step. So you can have 3 values in your range function. The last value called step will basically tell you how much step you want, how much numbers you want to join. The default step is 1. All right. So if I put 1 here, it's going to give me. Why is it taking time? Well, I hope everyone is still following. Am I too fast? Am I too slow? Am I too fast? Please, I need feedbacks. I need responses from you all. Oh, what's happening to this notebook? All right, let me just, because of time, let me just quickly share. Right, so let's see this. Okay, so this is supposed to be commented out. All right. This is still on though. Okay, so the reason why that was taken down was because of this particular line of code here. Right, so I should have commented it out. So Python is trying to understand what start, end, and step means, since it was not assigned to a variable. So that was why it was taking that long. All right, so Jeremy, thank you for that. I think, yeah, you actually pointed the issue out. Anyway, so now this step function, as by default it is 1. So if you change it to 2, you see that the step between each number will now become 2 values or 2 numbers. So in this case, the step between 1 and 2 is 1. The step between 2 and 3 is 1. So just subtract 2 from 3, you get 1. If I make it 2, the step is going to increase to 2. So if I run this, you see that the step between 1 and 3 is what? 2. The step between 3 and 5 is what? 2. The step between 5 and 7 is what? 2. The step between 7 and 9 is also 2. So that is what this last value in the range function means. If I change it to 5, you see I'll just get 2 values. The step between 1 and 6 is 5. So that is very true. If I make this 100, it's going to give me this range of this list of values, right? From 1 to 96 with this 5 step. If I change it to 2, it will give me this. So this is how you can use range function in Python. So the reason why I introduced this was because of how it is usually used in for loops, right? So let's say I want to do something 20 times. I don't want to perform an action 20 times. I can use the range function. I'll just come here and say for I in range 20, right? Can just come and say print this is data science class. So what will happen is that this particular action here would be done 20 times because we are creating a range value. So this is like a sequence. Like just imagine you have a list sequence like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 till 20. All right. And then you now put it here. Let's say you take it and then put it in this particular place. So what it does is it will loop over each element in that particular sequence and perform an action for the elements, right? So in this case, we are creating a range function. So if I just run this, just automatically do it 20 times for me, I'll say this is data science class, this is data science class till number 20. Do you understand? So that sometimes you might not necessarily need to perform an action on each element of that sequence. You just want to do a particular action 20 times without modifying or doing anything on the elements of the sequence, right? So that is how you use your range function. So just keep that in mind because it will really come in handy a lot. It will come in handy a lot. In this case, where we were using the list of names, we actually wanted to print out the items in that list, which are the names. But if I didn't want to do anything, if I don't want to print, I can just come here and say, I cannot say print hello. I say print hello world. Hello world. All right. And it's just the 6 times. Is it 6? 5 times. All right. So what it does is that it loops over each of them and then perform an action for each element. So if you want to print out the element or do anything to the element, you can do it. But if you just want to do something that is not connected to the element, it will do it, but it will do it according to the number of elements that you have in that list, all right, or in the sequence, right? So that is how we use for loops. So let's move on. So we've looked at how we can use for loops on lists, then we've looked at range. Let's now look at dictionary. Okay, someone is asking, why did I use I? I said this is a variable. This I here is a variable, and we can use any variable. I can come here and just use X, all right? So it will give me the same thing, all right? So sometimes you might not even use this variable in your in the subsequent code block, right? So it doesn't matter what you use there. But if you want to use it, you can just use anything that you might want to remember. You can use num and come here and print and say num, and then do something like this, and then print. You can see that at the beginning of each loop, we have the first number here, 0, second number 1, third number 2. Also, if I change this to, let's say, 120 and then step of 2, you can see we're going to have 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. So you see how everything is making sense, and you see how we can now start applying these concepts in different cases and in different scenarios. So that's just it about program. Program is a very interesting thing. So that's it for loop. Now that's it for list. Let's quickly look at how we can use loop over dictionary, right? Because dictionary is a different sequence. Dictionary. So remember, dictionary have what we call key value pairs. So let's have a dictionary like this, my dict. So I'm going to ask the question later, but let's just move on. So I'm going to have let's say no, I'll run out of ideas. Anyways, let's see. And let me just use single value. Just say name Ibrahim, gender male, state Lagos, occupation, scientist. All right, so we have this lot of syntax error here. So we have this. We're going to get we have a dictionary here. So you can come here and print out my dict, and I have this. So you might be asking, how do we loop over a dictionary since a dictionary is a sequence? By default, if you loop over a dictionary, what you are looping over is the key. You are looping over the key. So if I come and I say, for item in dict, print item, you can see that the items that are printed, we have name, we have gender, we have state, so it will automatically print out the keys for you by default. But if you want to print out the values, there is something you can actually do to achieve that. You can come and I say dot dictionary dot values, all right, and I'll run it. You can see that now it no longer prints out the keys, it now prints out the values instead. So if I add this particular method, this concept now is something that we've not discussed. It's something we're going to look at in tomorrow's class. So it's it's what we call attributes. Each data type has an attribute, right, that defines the way it behaves or the things that it can do. So you can extract the values of a dictionary by attaching this particular method that we call it to it. So it will give us the value. If you want to get the keys, you can come and say keys. All right, it will give you keys, but by default it should give you the keys. But if you want to get both the key and the value, you can come and say items. All right, items to give you a tuple of both the key and the value. And if I want to unpack them, I can come and say let's say key value. I'll come here and say print key and print value. You'll see we have this. So this is how we interact with dictionary using for loops. All right. So you can also iterate over a dictionary as well. So I believe with this idea, you can figure out how to do the iteration over strings, over tuple and other sequences that we have in Python. Right? So the next one, we're wrapping up now, and our time is very fast spent. We're wrapping up. Let's quickly on how we can use while loop and how while loop work. Right. So while loops, as I said, is quite different from for loop. So while loop executes or iterates or perform a block of code iteratively only when the condition is true. But when the condition becomes false, then your while loop will stop. All right, very, very important. So we're going to stop in while loop today, and then we're going to pick up from there. We're going to pick up loop control statements from tomorrow class, and then we're going to look at functions, which is like the most, I won't say most important, but a very, very key stuff in programming. We're then going to look at objects in Python, right? So what I just told you about the dictionary having all of the items, value, and all of that is from this concept that we're going to be looking at. So if you scroll down to this dictionary, you can see some of the attributes that it has. It has keys, it has values, it has items, it has this, it has that, it has this, it has that. So we're going to explain how each data type can perform a certain action based on the method or the function that you attach to it. All right, so but let's quickly look at while loop and then we call it a day. I think we've actually soaked in a lot today, so I'll just give you time to take them all in and go through them and digest properly. So while loops in Python, they execute a block of code as long as the specified condition is true. All right. It is usually used when the number of iterations is not known. Remember, for loop, you already have a defined number of times you want it to iterate. Like it is confined by the number of items in your list or the range function or whatever it is that the sequence you're looping over. But while loop is not confined, it is just based on a condition. Okay, so you can see here now the syntax is while, which is the keyword, followed by condition, and then followed by your block of code. So an example here is we can have something like this, and that. So let's just quickly look at while loop, right? Quickly. So for while loop, so it takes this pattern while condition, then your block of code followed by your action. All right. So that's how it works. So let's quickly give an example. So let's say you want to perform something as long as a given condition is met. All right. So let's say you want to set a number to, let's say, 5. And want to execute or want to perform something as long as we can say while num is less than 5. Then print, or you can see a print, print num is less than 5. All right. So this is how we can use while loop. So if I run this now, you can see that we don't have any output here. Why? Because num here is 5, and 5 is not less than 5. So it's not going to execute it. So for while loop and if statement, they are usually the same thing because there's a condition here. So this condition must be true. So if this condition is false, this particular block of code will not execute. So the difference between this while loop and if statement is that for if statement, it executes just once, right? It executes just once. If I come and I say if, and I change this, let me change the sign to greater than, or let's say equal, let me just say 2. All right. You see that I'm going to get this number 5 is less than 2. I'm going to get this. Wait, if num is greater, right? Sorry, greater than. So 5 is greater than 2, right? So if I change this to while statement, this is true, right? The difference between if and while is that while we continue executing this, it will continue the execution. Let me just take this to a new file so you can see what I'm saying, because it's actually going to continue executing till God knows when. Just give me a minute here. So we're ending soon. We're ending soon. Just to complete wrap up with this. So if I run this, I'm going to my. You can see that I'm getting outputs. Like this thing is an infinite loop at this point because it will continue executing 5 is greater than 2, 5 is greater than 2, 5 is greater than 2, because this statement here is true. And as long as this statement is true, it will continue the execution until maybe your battery dies or your laptop shuts down or whatever. It is not going to stop. It's called an infinite loop. So the reason why I brought this to a separate tab is so I can just easily close it because it's probably not going to end. So the only way to control this kind of loop is by adding some checkpoints or increasing or modifying the value. So I can come here and say num is, I can just subtract 1 from it. All right. I come here and I put this. You can see that it printed out just 3 and it stopped. Right. So the first one was 5 is greater than 2. Then 5 minus 1 is what? 4. So the number now is now 4, right? So 4 greater than 2? Yes. Print 4 is greater than 2, right? That 4 minus 1 is now 3. So it comes here and it becomes 3. Is 3 greater than 2? Yes. So to execute this thing, 3 is greater than 2. 3 minus 1 is what? 2. So when it comes to that 2 and it comes to compare this statement that with this 2 is 2 greater than 2, false. As immediately it becomes false, it will stop execution. It will not execute again. You understand? That is how while loop works. So if you're using while loop, you need to always add an increment or you need to modify your variable so that when it gets to that checkpoint, right, you are going to stop execution. If not, it will become an infinite loop. So while loop is a little bit more tricky and it is not as common as for loop. So depending on what you're doing, you might need to use while loop for that, right? So it's essential that you understand how while loop works. So while loop uses condition, while for loop just iterate over a sequence. While loop is not limited by the number of elements, it goes on infinitely. But why for loop is confined to the number of elements in the sequence. So that is basically the difference between while and for loop. There are also some things to look at where we have loop control statement, break, we have continue, we have else, right? Exactly. Yes, we have else too in loop statements. So we're going to discuss this thing tomorrow. I want to stop here at this point and just digest the one that we've done so far. So that's going to be it for today's class. So common use cases for while loop include iterating until a certain condition is met, implementing interactive user input loops, creating infinite loop with a break statement when a certain condition is met, implementing algorithms that require repetitive action until a certain condition is satisfied, like searching or stuff. So there are a lot of use cases for while loop, right? So the main thing is just for you to understand how it works and what it does. So when you come to the point that you need it, you will definitely know how to implement it. So that's going to be it for today's class. We've looked at not really a lot, but we've actually churn out a lot from if statements and the different kinds of conditional statement, rather different kind of conditional statement, if else, if else, and nested conditional statements and ternary operations. We also looked at loops and iteration. We looked at what loops and iteration are. We looked at for loops. We looked at what for loop does, how it loops over a sequence. We looked at how we can use it for a dictionary. We looked at how we can use range function. And we also looked at while loops as well, how it operates using conditions, unlike for loop, right? And also looked at how we can, if we don't put a breaking point or we don't control the variable, we can end up having infinite loop and all of that. So I feel we've actually learned a lot today. So just take your time to go over everything we've done. And the video will be made available definitely as usual. So you can go over it. And yeah, so as usual, I'm going to be taking some questions. I will take just 5 questions. So if you have any question, just raise your hand. All right. So I think I've gotten the 5 persons. I have Hamza, Abdullahi, I have Godwin, I have Glory. All right, so let me just see if I can add. All right, so okay, let me start with Glory Rita. Glory Rita, please ask your question. You are on mute now. Rita, you raise your hand. Please unmute yourself and ask your question. All right, so I'm going to unmute you back. So there's no time. Chinonso Ogbonnaya. Chinonso, please unmute yourself and ask a question.
Yeah.
Please, can you turn off your video?
Yeah. Good evening, sir.
Please turn off your video, Chinonso. Yeah, thank you.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah, good evening.
Please, sir, thank you for your wonderful lecture being delivered. My own question goes on a nested loop.
Yeah.
Whereby in a situation whereby you have maybe you have if statements, like you have if statement, like 2 if statements. Can you have another 4 nested loop inside the if statement?
Yeah. The thing is that there is no particular restriction to all these things. It depends on what you are doing, right? You can actually have nested if statement with loops inside. You can have nested loops with if statement inside. All right. So it just depends on the complexity of the work you're doing. So the thing is just for you to try it out yourself. I feel that is the best way to answer this question, right? We can't actually cover all the cases of how we use nested statement and all of that. So just try it out yourself, check it out, all right, to see if it's possible. So I think that is even a much better way to learn and just understand this stuff, all right. So, but yeah,
Okay.
it's definitely possible.
Okay, thank you, sir.
All right. So Godwin Emmanuel, I'm going to be unmuting you now. Godwin Emmanuel, please ask the question.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah, if you remember my name as my name when I spoke to you last week on this platform, you asked me to send you a DM for regards to submission of my first week assignment. So I did, but your reply sounds you forgot. So I'm asking, I don't know what happened between. You promise you give me that benefit of doubt because I complained that I wasn't too fine. Even though I'm so much interested in the data science class because I've been doing a lot of trainings on HMS, CSS, and Java. So Python on this ground, I was seeing it like the way they used to say it's a one no-go place. But on this course, the data science, so far I've not seen anything. So I'm interested in going forward, even though I advised that I should get healed, well first before coming to it. So I don't mind if you will allow me to still continue by giving the necessary assistance, especially at this initial stage of the program. When we now get further, like really deep Python coding assignment, we won't joke with you on that. So this is my appeal and my request.
So we have graded your assignment.
Hello.
Did you turn?
Yes, you said so.
Did you turn the assignment on the platform? That's the most important thing. Did you turn it in?
I don't know. I didn't get the turning in, but I filled the Google form and submitted.
Yeah, I know, but on the platform where the assignment was assigned, did you turn it in? Did you turn in the assignment? Because I opened it
Okay,
when you requested that I did for others to turn in their assignment. So if you turned it in, then there's no problem. But if you didn't, I don't know. Well, it won't be possible to grade again because it has been closed. Unless I have to start do some tweaks here and there. Please, can we just talk on the chat for the sake of time, please, so that others can ask the question. Thank you. So please, if you're going to ask question and it's pertaining to issues and all of that, just send me a DM. I know I have a lot of DM, but I'll try my best to attend to them. But for this class, sake of this class, let it be peculiar or specific to what we are doing here, right? So we don't have the luxury of time. We don't have a lot of time on our hands. So let's focus on what we actually doing for today's class, right? So let me also I'm thinking I'm still seeing some hands up. So if you raise your hand before, you can still bring it up back. All right, Thomas, ask your question. Thomas, your hand is up. Please, let's be quick. I need to round up this class right away.
All right, so please, can you hear me, sir?
Yeah, I can hear you. Go on.
Hello, can you hear me, sir?
I can hear you. Go on, please.
All right. I have two questions. One, I turned in my assignment, my week 2 assignment, on the portal, but coming to check the rating, it wasn't recorded. I've done my attendance, and the same thing is not reading, still showing me 4 classes attended, whereas I have attended all the classes. That aside, I have a little fix on the if statement. You wrote the if statement and you wrote the condition. You wrote the action and then you ran it and it went through. But for the if else statement, there was you had an indentation, that's the colon. But for if, you didn't put a colon. Is it that if I take out the colon from the else, it will still run? Please, I'm just need the response from the two.
You said the if has a colon and the else doesn't have a colon, or what?
In the if else statement.
Yeah.
Yes. In the if else statement, when you're writing if, you don't put colon.
I put colon. I think let me go back. All the if statement we wrote,
like if the condition, then underneath you can put the action. Yes.
You can see we have a colon here. We have a colon here.
No. If you go to if,
yeah.
If you go to if that is green. If when you type if,
yeah,
that is green. Yes. Mm-hmm. There is no colon there. But when you come to this else, there is a colon.
Okay.
So I want to know, if I take out this colon from the else, will it still run?
Okay. I think this is just a syntax issue. So when you type if, you are not done with the statement. You need to type out the condition before you put your colon. For the else statement, the reason why we have colon immediately after the else is because we don't need a condition at all. We don't need to write any other thing. We are done with that particular
Okay.
So until you are done with writing everything you want to write, you don't put the colon. You put the colon after you are done with it. You understand? All right. So I think that should.
Then for the first question that I said, I turned in my assignment. I think I even did 3 times.
Week 2 has not been graded for anybody.
But
it has not been graded yet. It has not been graded. So it's a general thing. It's not just graded. And it's 4 classes we've had so far. So I think you're up to date with attendance. So you don't have an issue. All right. I'm going to take Edith Young Moses. Please ask your question. Quickly. Moses, Edith Young. Unmute yourself, please, and ask your question.
Hello, evening.
Yeah, good evening.
Please, I just want to ask in writing the law, can I write the while, like the while statement inside the for statement, and also include the if statement? Is it possible to have that combination, like the
It is,
while?
it is, yeah, it is very possible. Like that's the beauty of Python. Like you can actually combine all these control statements as long as this is very important. As long as the logic makes sense, you can combine them. All right. So as long as the
So
logic makes sense, you can combine them.
like how can I combine them? Like if I'm using an while statement, how can I combine it with the for and the if it's that possible? If there is any rule for me to combine it.
That's what I'm saying. Like, um, I can't start giving you examples now, but you can, depending on what you are doing. Let's say you can start with an if statement, all right? You can start with
Okay.
a for statement. Let's say you want to loop over a particular sequence. Let's say for this in this particular sequence, if this variable is equal to, let's say you want to check all the items or all the names in a sequence, and you want to like you are looking for a particular name, all right? So you can loop over it, and then when you get to a particular point, then you use if statement to check if the variable is equal to this name, then print yes, name is here or something like that. So the options are limitless, right? So it's just for you. That's why I keep telling you to try this on your own. I can't give you all the examples that are available, right? So I just give you the building block, and then you go and try. You have Jupyter notebook, you have Python installed and all of that. Try it, like get your hands dirty, get errors and all of that, and you will learn a lot from trying, right? So, but the main thing is that yes, you can combine these things. You can have nested for loops, and then inside the nested for loop, have an if statement and all of that. So just try it out, but make sure that the logic makes sense. That is the key thing. The logic has to make sense. Don't do something that is illogical or that doesn't really make sense, and then you expect it to work. So that's it. So
Thank
um,
you.
all right, you're welcome. Okay, so take a few more questions and then call it a day. Ademu Job, please ask a question.
All right, thank you very much, sir, for your lectures. We appreciate. Though you said concerning the assignment the other time, we should DM you. Though I've sent you a DM earlier, but it has not yet delivered. You just give me one check, and I don't know if you need to do something at your end, sir.
Okay, I'll check it. I'm just in another DM again. All right.
Okay, sir. Thank you. All right.
Sorry for that. All right. Nigeria Nash, ask your question quickly.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah, good evening.
Okay, my question is regards to the nested if statement. So you're like, there's really no limit to the if statements that can be nested in one. So I was just asking, my question is there like an alternative to deeply nested if statements? Like, is there a cleaner way of putting it? And when you mentioned the ternary operators, that was actually like a shorthand or a simpler way of like putting it together. But is there also another way of like managing it? Because it means like the if statement can get like so much and so long.
Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, the nested statement doesn't really have a limit. You can have as much nested as much if statement in a nest as possible. But for the cleaner way, you might not need nested statement all the time, all right? So as a programmer, one thing about being a programmer is that you really have to put your brain into work. Like you have to think about how to approach problems. Programmers are first problem solvers before they are coders, before they write code and all of that. So once you have a problem that you want to translate it to code, you ask yourself, what's the best approach, right? You try something first. If it's looking, that particular approach is looking so complex, right? You can start looking for other approaches and all of that. But the first thing is to make sure that you translate what you have to a code and you make it work first before you start optimizing it. So for alternative to nested if, see, that's why I keep saying it depends on your problem. Like in Python generally, we don't have a specific set of rules. Like you don't have it. It's like an ocean basically. Like there is no limit to what you can do. So you just have to determine how well to approach what you are doing based on the problem you're trying to solve. All right. So you might, for their particular problem, nested if statement might be the only thing that would solve that issue, right? There might not be another alternate way to do it, but for some other problems, you might actually require, or there might be a better way to actually do it other than nested if. So you might need to use your functions, or let's say your logical operator, or even a simpler method like logical comparison, logical operations instead, right? And all of that. So the main thing is that there's no specific rule to doing a particular thing. Just try out different things. That is why we are giving you all these concepts. All right. So for you to try it on your own, we don't want to start telling you, okay, this is how you should do this, this is how you should do that. There is no rule and all of that. So you just put your mind into work as a programmer, like learn the basics, learn the concept, learn the tools and all of that, but use those materials to get what you want, right? There is no cut-out way to do it, all right? So, but there are principles to follow, definitely. As we are advancing, you'll be learning all of that, and you can as well, although we're not going into software development or software engineering, right? But it's still part of it as well. You can learn and pick up principles from other places that will help you become a better programmer. For some of us here, we might not even necessarily be learning Python, come here to become a data scientist. We just want to learn Python and just get to know it and add to what we are doing. So that's basically just it, right? So there is no limit to nested if statement, and they can definitely be alternative based on what you are doing. Okay, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you very much.
All right. So let me pick the last person. Innocent. Can you ask a question quickly and then we wrap up?
All right. Thank you, Mr. Emmanuel.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Can I be heard?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you. Go on.
All right. Thank you so much for the work you're doing so far. My question is the aspect of, or let me say, the reason why I actually enrolled for this training is just to learn Python and Power BI. So I'm asking in that direction. Are you going to bring up Power BI?
No,
As in,
we're not doing
okay, you're not going to bring up Power BI along the line.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so thank you very much. We'll be drawing the curtain at this point. So as we normally do, let me know what you've learned in today's class. Just write them out on the group, and yeah, we're going through them. Don't forget that the election is still on. Please go to the chat, follow the link to see the candidates that are up there, and select the person that you feel will do a better job. And we're going to announce the winner and all of that tomorrow in tomorrow's class. So do have a nice day. Enjoy the rest of your day, and see you in tomorrow's class. Thank you.